everybody, and welcome to The Power Is Now. My name is Eric Frazier. The 1968 Fair Housing Act was a game changer. April 11th, 1968, hundreds of cities caught on fire, riots, and all kinds of things ensued that led to President Johnson to signing this bill into law. Many believe that it was only signed into law just to keep us quiet, to calm us down, and that the law, in effect, didn't really have any power to make the kind of changes that we were all hoping would be realized. And so we're asking the question today, is the 1968 Fair Housing Act living up to its goals and aspirations? Do we need the 1968 Fair Housing Act still and all the amendments that have happened thereafter? What can we do to make it more effective and to get more buy-in from real estate professionals and lenders and consumers who may desire to discriminate or in any way try to block minorities from purchasing homes in their neighborhood or renting homes? Today we have Leon Townsend, who is the president of the California Association of Black Real Estate Professionals. He's the president-elect, and Dolores Golden, who is the president of the California Association of Black Real Estate Professionals, to talk with us about the 1968 Fair Housing Act. Welcome, Leon and Dolores, to the show. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. I know you're very busy, full-time real estate professionals, as well as volunteering officers of a trade association. So I know what that means. Now, before we get into our very important topic today, I want to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests. It's a tradition here on The Power Is Now. And that is, what does the phrase, "the power is now," mean to you in the context of who you are, what you do professionally? And since we're talking about fair housing, let's start with you, Dolores.
Well, the power is now, because you know, Eric, I've known you for a very long time, so I'm familiar with the power is now. And at the time when you started it, I thought that is right on. The power is now. And now, after the unconscionable beating and killing of Floyd, we all were woke. And the power again is now, especially for Black people. If we don't take the power that is right now in our hands, we will never get it again. We see it with gentrification. As a realtor, Black realtors are going to be extinct in a minute because of gentrification. And because the people that are coming to America don't speak English and they want someone comfortable in their own language. So the people that are coming to California is going to be totally different in the next 20 years. And we will be extinct if we don't take the power is right now and take charge.
Dolores, you know, I totally understand what you're saying. The immigration to California from other states and countries is about 25% of the population. And in fact, I was reading the other day that they're predicting that California will go from 40 million, which it is currently, to 50 million by 2050. And about 75% of that growth is going to come from Californians having babies, but a significant number is going to happen through immigration. So we definitely do need to seize the power that we have now so that we can be relevant in the future. So
absolutely.
Great power is now statement. Leon, can you top that?
No, but I could definitely.
The younger version.
I can give you my perspective. Like Dolores mentioned, everything that's happened after George Floyd was kind of an igniter. And I think that, realizing what that statement of power is now means is that there's no better time to realize the change and capabilities that you have, not only on a small scale, but a large scale, better than today, right? If you realize it tomorrow or Sunday, you're a day too late. You'll still be trying to catch up from realizing what you have today. So you want change, you want things to happen, you want to maintain relevancy. It all starts now with you and, you know, who you align yourself with and what you believe in, and, you know, withstanding change and things that are happening. Like you know, you both mentioned gentrification and immigration, you know, realizing that the only person that can really stop you is you. So just realizing that you have all the power is, you know, kind of to me a like, you know, kind of like an inspiration thing. And whenever and it comes to fair housing, you know, the power is now. Like we realize things have to change. They've, you know, they should have changed 54 years ago, you know, and as we get into later, question is, has the power of this act really changed our situation?
That is the question, Leon. Thank you for your power is now statement. And you're absolutely right. The power is within us, right? We have to do our part to see the change we want to see in the world. Again, I really appreciate you both taking time out of your busy schedule to join me today to talk about this very important topic. And before we get into the organizations that you represent, tell me a little bit more about your profession. In fact, let's start with you, Dolores. You are a seasoned, well-established real estate broker. Share with our audience a little bit about your company, how long you've been in business, where you're located.
Thank you, Eric. My company is First Interstate Realtors. A lot of people go into business and they want to have their own name on the company. But when I started in 1990, I wanted my company to have a bigger image, and I had relatives in other states. So I was thinking, well, maybe we could be the first interstate real estate company across the globe, but that didn't happen. So I'm still here in Culver City, California, which is centrally located. I'm close to Inglewood, Compton, Beverly Hills, you name it. I'm just within 30 minutes away. So I'm close to everything. I've been in business as my own broker since 1990. And when I started, I had about 30 agents working for me. And now we're down to a basic 7. 7 is the magic number. And all my agents are experienced. We list and sell real estate property. And unfortunately, I'm the queen of probate. I cringe at the probate. So that's another thing we're trying to do with our volunteer organizations is make the community aware that you need to get a trust, and you need to trust your relatives and make sure if you get a reverse mortgage that they know about it. If they're going to be your health care provider, they need to know what kind of situation your home is in. So we have been in business a long time because we care about the community. I'm not up here on TV selling gazillion-dollar properties. You know, it's down the street. I love selling property to people that are happy when I give them the keys. Their whole family is happy. They have smiles on their faces. It's not just, oh, it's another property and pass the keys and move on. So that's why I've been in business so long, because I love what I'm doing. Hopefully I'll follow in the footsteps of Ted Lumpkin. He was doing real estate until he was 100 and passed away earlier this year. But he was still live and active and driving his car and had a pen that he could sign a contract. So that's my goal.
Well, I'm rooting for you. I want you to achieve that goal. We need seasoned, professional, highly intelligent, educated, Black real estate professionals serving our community and the community at large. So thank you again for sharing your background. Leon, tell us a little bit about your company and your role actually with the organization.
Yeah, so I'm currently at Comfort Real Estate. It's a minority-owned real estate brokerage that is in LA County and Ventura County. I've only been in the business since the great year of 2015. So that's going on 7 years in September. I will officially be 7 years. I might have got a couple gray hairs in the beard just from all the things I've experienced in these 7 years. So for me, it's my passion and my drive is that home ownership number that everybody, reads about and hears about every year. my goal is to up that. So I like working with first-time home buyers. In the LA County area, there's not really an area that I don't go to. I just feel like, honestly, it doesn't matter where someone, owns a property. It's about owning the property. It's not about if you're in Riverside or if you're in, La Cañada or if you're in Carson. It's about having your name on that title at the end of the day. And to me, that's the main important thing. I would love to be, in this business till I'm 100. If I do my calculations right, I have about 66 years and a month left to do this till I'm 100. So I'm gonna try and get there as best as possible.
Well, I'm rooting for you as well. I know you can do it. Now, Leon, since you are the president-elect, why don't we start with you to talk about the mission and vision of the California Association of Black Real Estate Professionals. And let's also draw the distinction here between the California Association of Real Estate Brokers and the California Association of Black Real Estate Professionals.
Yeah. So I'm going to paraphrase our mission statement. So our mission at CABREP, or the California Association of Black Real Estate Professionals, is our goal is to create, mold, and bring about Black, realtors as leaders in the California Association of Realtors. So that's our main goal. We want to make sure that they're doing not only what's best for themselves or brokerage in the industry, but they're doing what's best for the community as well. So, like Ms. Dolores mentioned, making sure and ensuring that they're, have the access to trust and wills. That also maintains, that home ownership number that we're focused on, as well as our leadership capabilities. For those who, aren't really active in the California Association of Realtors, when, before I came on board, you really only heard about a small amount of Black leaders. Now that number has been increasing because, they're getting exposure, they're getting opportunities to show what they're capable of. And at a leadership quality, not only, in, the state meetings, but also in their own brokerages, in their own local associations, in their own communities. So it's, the real distinction there is that we are completely separate. We are a nonprofit. So, we do have our own 501c3 status, but our goal is to not only help and mold leaders, but to help them become leaders in their own community.
Thank you for sharing that, Leon. There has been historically a lack of leadership in the California Association of Realtors, and a lack of real cooperation with other minority trade associations as well. So Dolores, can you speak to what your current goal is as president? What's your agenda, if you will, as you close out your term for this new young buck that's coming up behind you?
Happy to have him on board, very happy. And that was part of our goal. When we started our organization, we called it the BBC, the Black Business Caucus, because we would meet after meetings at restaurants or bars and get together about what happened during the day at our CAR meetings. And the funny thing is that when I first met Eric 1,000 years ago, we were the only two Black people in the room at a California Association of Realtors event. That evening, they give a realtor party event. And Eric and I were the only two Black people in the room. So imagine every time I go to a meeting, down the halls, all I see is 5 other Black people, and I could name them. And it was so bad that I could ask a white friend of mine, have you seen so-and-so? And they say, oh yeah, they just went that way. That's how bad it was. So when we formed, and just like Leon said, to increase leadership within the CAR organization, and we have done it. I can't tell you how many, because I didn't bring the count with me, maybe Leon knows, but we have chairs of committees now and vice chairs of committees, that important committees that we have never had before. It's amazing. And because of that, I hope that that was the reason that we gave commitment and backup to people. We have a lot of women that are now president of their Women's Council of Realtor chapter, Black women that we have never seen before. And we also have women leaders that we have never seen before. The Greater LA Association of Realtors has a Black treasurer, Tawny English, who's also the treasurer of our group. You've never seen that before. So we are accomplishing my goals, which is our goals. And we're increasing. And the other part of that flip was most of us 5 people that you saw all the time were older Black people. And we wanted to bring young people along and help mentor and give them backup so that they can excel and rise above that glass ceiling and crack it. And we've done that. So that's what we want. We want to be able to not retire from real estate, but retire from doing 25 different volunteer jobs. So welcome aboard, Leon.
Thank you.
Dolores, having been a member of CAR and being involved in the organization, as well as KRAB, as well as NARAB, I know you know firsthand how challenging it is to volunteer your time in real estate associations and at the same time run a business. I mean, it's a serious commitment. So I take my hat off to both of you for the work you're doing. And it's so good to see a CAR, and not just CAR, we have to give NAR some credit as well for their efforts towards increasing diversity in leadership. I had the privilege and honor to meet Farah Wilder. She joined us last year, and we talked about the Fair Housing Act. In fact, she's going to be joining us again this year, hopefully before we end this series. And I'm so happy they have someone who is really bringing a focus on diversity and inclusion in the California Association of Realtors, and that they have created this, Black real estate professionals division. Is it a division? What exactly? It is a trade association within the larger association, correct?
No, actually, we're separate. We're just on our own. We're a 501c3 nonprofit created by us, for us. Now, they did approve of it and loved it. And like I said, we were in that Floyd generation where everybody got woke. So they were really happy and very happy to encourage and make us part of their organizational meetings, which was a first. Because like I said before, we were meeting in the shadows. We were meeting in bars and restaurants at night in a private room so nobody would see us, because when more than 6 of us got together, they'd want to join. Oh, what are you drinking? Let's join you. Because that's the way we roll. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to be a part of it. So we had to separate in order to get our stuff together and organize and be our own entity. So we're our own entity. And most of us belong to NARAB.
Right.
So there you go.
So you have NARAB, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. You have KRAB, which is a state chapter under NARAB. And then you now have the California Association of Black Real Estate Professionals. So is there a reason why this organization is not under KRAB or NARAB as opposed to its own entity? Because you're saying you're not even under CAR, right?
Right. Because we formed in order to create leadership, Black leadership within CAR.
I see.
And that's why it's separate. So it just so happens that most of us, just like most of us belong to the NAACP, most of us belong to NARAB and KRAB.
That's right.
So it's, it's your Black calling card. It's your backbone. But it's totally different because NARAB, which I applaud, that mission of the house first, then the car. Because with our Black people, that's a major problem. Anybody can buy a car as long as you have the money, but everybody couldn't buy a house. And now we need to make sure the young America understands that we didn't always have that right. It's a privilege and you need to take advantage of it. Buy anything. Buy you a piece of land in Palmdale if that's what it takes to start. But start. But that's why we're separate, because it can't be the same. it's totally different mission.
Yes, focus on leadership, bringing up leadership, establishing leadership within the
Exactly.
California Association of Realtors. Thank you so much, Dolores and Leon, for shedding light on the organization, your careers. For those of you who are joining us, we are talking to Dolores Golden, who is the president of the California Association of Black Real Estate Professionals, and Leon Townsend, who is the president-elect. We're going to be talking about the 1968 Fair Housing Act, and so far we've got a chance to get to know them, what they're all about. And next up is April. April is Fair Housing Month, and there's a lot happening across the country in talking about fair housing, particularly the act, the 1968 Act. And so that's what we're going to do next. You're listening to The Power Is Now television, podcast, and you may be even reading the magazine. Go to thepowersnow.com and check us out. We'll be right back right after this commercial break.
Want to keep up with the current developments happening in the world of real estate? The Real Estate Roundtable, hosted by Eric L. Frazier, is a show you do not want to miss. The show features a panel of VIP agents who are passionate about helping people. It is what they do best. They discuss today's hot topics, latest market updates and trends. The panel also conducts interviews with prominent figures in the industry. New episode every Friday live on Facebook and replay on the Power Is Now YouTube channel.
And we're back. For those of you just joining us, welcome to The Power Is Now. We're talking about the 1968 Fair Housing Act, and I have Dolores Golden, who is the president of the California Association of the Black Real Estate Professionals, and Leon Townsend, who is the president-elect, to talk about the 1968 Fair Housing Act, its importance, what we can do to make it, to make it better. Is still discrimination a problem, particularly for African Americans? So let's get right to it. April is Fair Housing Month. What is your organization doing to promote fair housing? Let's start with you.
Homeownership 365 is, our initiative to, pretty much say, being a homeowner is 365 days out the year. Every day is a step that you need to take to get towards home, owning a home, as well as maintaining ownership. So last year we started a series where we would have experts come in. We had Lori Gay, who is part of, neighborhood housing. She's the CEO. So she would talk about, programs that help, with down payment assistance in certain areas, grants that, are offered. We've had financial advisors and professionals come in talking about the importance of trust and wills and how to consistently keep up with that. Do you need to have someone come in every year? What's the difference between a living trust and a living will? Which one transfers things over? Which one is, consistent and permanent till you leave this earth? What is easier for, your heirs to get that property that you owned, to avoid probate and, avoiding that, because probate is not an easy issue. It is a emotional draining process that we are, let's just say, consistent victims of, because you lose a large amount of your home value when in probate, and you still have to pay taxes on that even if you win in probate. So our goal is to consistently bring professionals, topics that people don't necessarily get the knowledge of on a consistent basis. We're also working on programs this year to bring the professionals to the community. We're in the works, hopefully COVID permitting, that we can actually go out in the community, have these professionals come and literally on the spot help them draft up their trusts and wills, so that, when that time does come, those heirs can stay in that property. You don't have to have a realtor come in and sell that property and, worry about paying taxes or going to the court system, right? The court system isn't fun. It doesn't matter if you're going for probate or any other event. It is not a great place to be. So our goal to maintaining home ownership is understanding and making sure people know every day, every step forward is a positive step forward towards homeownership.
Dolores, how serious is this problem with probate? Because, it sounds like this is a real problem that you guys are addressing as an organization to ensure that African Americans can retain the wealth that their parents have built over time.
Oh, it's amazing. To give you a good example, where I live in View Park, on both sides of me, the owners died. So on one side, the wife was in a convalescent hospital because she had dementia. So they had to get an attorney for conservatorship. And then the other heirs were fighting, so they had to get 2 attorneys. So by the end, we had 4 different attorneys for a probate of 2 properties. It was incredible. And they did have a trust, but one of the family members, while one of the owners was in the hospital, took the trust and altered it. So see, when you do your trust, you need to make 3 or 4 copies and give it to trusted people and put somewhere who the attorney for that drew up the trust is, where they can be located so that people can find it. On the other side of me, there were 3 heirs, and they only had 1 attorney, so they didn't have a problem with the selling of the property. But they sold it because 2 of them already had properties. The other one wanted to buy one, and they didn't want to live there because it was in such disrepair. See, that's the other problem. We find that by the time most people pass on to the great beyond, their house is in very poor condition. And depending on what neighborhood they live in, they don't know usually that there's a senior program that handymen can come and fix and repair your house and do painting and change your pipes and stuff at a very low cost that you can afford. So that's one problem. The other problem we find is that seniors get taken advantage of, and the solar panel people come and put it on their tax bill, and their relatives don't know anything about it. And then because they're secretive, they don't trust anybody. So when they come to find out about it, here's a $50,000 extra bill for solar panels that's in with their tax bill. And then when they go to sell the house, they have to address that issue. So there are all kinds of issues with seniors and dying without a trust, and goes into probate, and the lawyers are the ones that make all the money, and it gets drawn out. It could take 2 to 3 years. My worst scenario was my son was in the Army. He had before he was on the reserve list, so he had a listing that was a probate. He got drafted back to Afghanistan. He was gone for a year. He came home. I'm still going to court with the same probate. It makes no sense. If you've got 5 kids that you left, they each have an attorney. There's 5 attorneys. It's just a nightmare. Nightmare.
Dolores, this sounds like another aspect of fair housing, where we need to make sure that people have the information, the education, and the support to not only take care of their properties, but to plan for when there is unexpected or even expected death that will occur in the family. Now, the 1968 Fair Housing Act was supposed to, prevent or at least deter discrimination. And so my question to you both here is the Fair Housing Act doing its job? And first of all, let's just start. Do we still need a Fair Housing Act?
Absolutely. Redlining is alive and well, and it's changed its color to green lining, so it blends in with the sidewalk and you don't know it's there. It's still there. I tell you, years ago in the 60s, when I first moved to California, moved to Inglewood, and we had 2 kids. So we'd go to an apartment complex. Oh, we don't take kids at that age. They're too young. Or we don't take kids at that age. They're too old. So finally, typically coming from New Jersey, my husband had to reach into his back pocket and say, will this change your mind? So we had to pay cash to get into an apartment in Inglewood. And now Inglewood is totally changed. So that was just the beginning. And that was in the 60s. Things have not changed. I still have people calling all the time. Yet they call our nonprofit. They call us because they're friends and family where they can't get into an apartment. The prices are so high and they've got all these guidelines, but we definitely still need the Fair Housing Act. Also, LGBTQ plus communities are experiencing a lot of discrimination in housing and also in renting. It's incredible in this 2022 that they're going through this, but they still are. It's amazing that if the owners in the house and they see the offer being presented, they'll stop it. They don't want people in their neighborhood that don't look like them or are not married to different people. They're just crazy. It's insane, but that's the way it is. And we definitely need to keep the Fair Housing Act going. We need to extend it to all types of folks. We are in this together. Black people understand because we've been discriminated against for so long that anybody else that goes through it, we understand right away and we relate. And that's why we defend and protect them. We pretend and defend rather and protect everyone that we can because we understand the nightmare of not being able to find a place to live, renting or buying. And nowadays, because the prices are so high in California, it's even worse because I have home buyers that have been working hard for years, got a good profession and a good salary. We go to make an offer on their pre-approved level and there's 35, 40 offers. So now we're into a whole different realm. It's the expensive home syndrome. And we got that way in the past 3-4 years. It wasn't like that 3-4 years ago. Now it's just disheartening and discouraging and people are getting depressed. And that's why a lot of young Black people are moving out of California, going to Arizona, going to Atlanta, going to Texas. You know, they're leaving. But then we still have a lot of people coming in. The immigrants, the gentrification people that don't want to be out in the valley anymore. They want to be where the action is because we're a little lively here. But, you know, it's a mess. It's
Dolores,
a mess.
you spoke of your personal experience of your husband having to, you know, pay extra cash just to find a place to rent. Leon, do you have any personal experiences of discrimination in housing? Have you ever been discriminated? And then also, what does fair housing mean to you personally?
Yeah, you know, I've been a victim of housing discrimination before I even knew it. My parents, when they bought the home that they live in now, they've been in since 1995. There was a clear lack of information. You know, after escrow had closed, they thought that they had paid all their services out, everything like that. They were stuck with a $5,000 bill that they had no idea about. Nobody told them, you know, agent didn't tell them. So my parents had to come up with an extra $5,000. I've applied to apartments where, you know, they see my income, they see my bank statements, and they wanted to call all of my employers, even my past employers. They wanted a copy of my social security card to keep on file. They wanted to, you know, have a criminal check. They wanted to check my friends that would come over and visit me at my new place. They wanted to know who my family was. And this is before I even knew all of that. I've experienced discrimination as a realtor. You know, I've been, you know, door knocking, which is one of the things I don't really like doing anymore because, you know, I've been kicked out because I was a Black realtor. You know, they were like, you know, I've been called the N-word in, you know, in listing presentations and buyer presentations. I'm like, it's 2019, 2020. You know, people are still believing this. So for me, fair housing is just the ability for people to freely choose where they can live without any restrictions on their social or personal status. And if they have the money to afford to live somewhere, they should be able to live there. Plain and simple.
Dolores, have you ever been mistreated because of your race as a real estate professional and out trying to sell or represent buyers?
Absolutely, absolutely. There was a time when, again, in Inglewood, I went to an open house and the realtor comes to the door. Oh, the open house is over. It's closed. You can't come in. So there's a lot of that. And in presenting offers, it's amazing that we had to go through all this. And like Leon said, door knocking. I was door knocking in mid-city LA. And of course, it was a 99% white neighborhood and they would slam the door. So I decided, well, if I had something to give them, they wouldn't slam the door. Back then, you could get pot holders with your name on them and your phone number and all kinds of little door bottle openers and everything. So then when we went door knocking, we would always have something in our hand to give away, little sewing kits or stuff. And then they would at least open the door and take it before they slam the door because they don't want to talk to you. But we used to have 2 cards. I have one card with my picture on and that I give out in person because then they see I'm Black. And another card without the picture that you do with your mail out so they don't know what color you are because my name is Dolores Golden, so they don't know what I am. So there you go. It's called Doing Real Estate While Being Black. It's incredible. I've had my agents go to East LA and be called a Negro by Latino people. So it's everywhere. They don't want us and you just have to pursue and make sure you got a strong back so you can take it because it's going to be out there. We standing on the shoulders of our ancestors that were in cotton fields. So come on now, we come a long way and just don't take it. Keep on, keep on.
Well, you're absolutely right. We have come a long way from the cotton fields to the White House and now to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
We have come.
Power to the people.
It's amazing to me, though, that, and you're the first realtor that's brought this to my attention, that you have 2 sets of business cards, one with your picture on it and one without your picture. And that really just kind of tells a story that racism, discrimination because of a person's color or their sexual orientation or their ethnicity, still exists. Now, you know about the Newsday article that really exposed the discrimination that was going on in New Jersey and parts of New York.
Long Island.
Yes, Long Island, that's right. And NAR, as a result of that, implemented a whole lot of policies and changes and educational programs. And but I wonder, is that enough? Is that enough? Do you still see that discrimination is still a really big problem, or has it calmed down with real estate professionals?
Well, I think that, first of all, NAR and then on to CAR, they both created diversity offers. I think NAR always had one, and I was in close contact with them because every time something happened, I'd call them. You know me, I do not be quiet. I am going to be the squeaky wheel. So actually they did, CAR came to our organization and asked for input as to who they should make their diversity officer. And we recommended Farrah Wilder. So that was great. And she's doing a lot because she's really smart. She used to be a civil rights attorney, so she's right in there with this realm, but there's still a lot to do. The other thing I might say, speaking of the past, and then Leon can talk about the future, but I'm from New Jersey. And I knew in Long Island, Black people lived in certain parts. It's just like in New Jersey, in my little town that I grew up in, the Italians lived here, the Irish lived here, the Polish people lived there. We didn't have that many Cubans started coming in. That was our first wave of Hispanics, but that's the way it was. And then Haitians started migrating in because you remember that's back in the 60s. So the Haitians weren't leaving Haiti. They were still in paradise, enjoying the sand and the sea. But that's the way it was. And then I came out to California. And like I said, that discrimination in Inglewood. Then my job moved me to Illinois and the suburbs of Chicago. And that was another awakening. There were certain parts of Chicago that Black people weren't allowed in after dark. And this is in the 70s, the late 70s. Yeah, Blue Island, Illinois, Cicero, Illinois. I'll never forget them. So we stayed with our relatives in Gary, Indiana, which you know was 99% Black, and until we could find a house. And we moved into a suburb area that had a mix of people, Blacks, Philippines, everything. And that's what we liked. So we grew up, our kids up in that neighborhood where everybody was mixed. That's the way people should do. When you look around your neighborhood and you see us all white, something's wrong with your neighborhood. You need to start rethinking what's going on. Is somebody not letting Black people look at houses in this neighborhood? And do you care? Do you really care? See, that's the other thing. If you want to keep it lily white, it's going to stay that way. But you need to look around because some of these people are not paying attention and your grandkids are going to be beige. So what are you going to do then? That's the awakening.
No, you're absolutely right. Leon, let's talk about the future. So we have the National Association of Real Estate Brokers started in 1947 because of the lack of cooperation, support, advocacy for Black real estate professionals and the African American community. And then, the 1968 Fair Housing Act was supposed to, bring some type of equality to housing, fairness in housing, so that we could buy and or sell and live where we want to live. But many believe that it was only passed just to stop the burning and looting and rioting, that it really didn't have then and even now any real teeth to enforce the law. And as a result of that, we see the homeownership rate from when they started tracking it in the early 40s or 50s to what it is now, the same. We are around 40, maybe 41, 42% homeownership rate nationally. Here in California, it's even worse. It's like 35% of African Americans own a home. What do we do, Leon, to change the hearts and minds of real estate agents with all the training, all the continuing education, everything that the associations are trying to do, but it's not working? At least the numbers show that it's not working. What do we do?
First things first, you really have to push and help agents and brokers understand the consequences of this. First things first, Article 10.5 in, the National Association of Realtors, Article 10.5 was created so that people really understand the ramifications of what happens when blatant discrimination is actually proven and shown. And that's, through social media, through advertising and marketing materials. There's, I don't know if you guys know this, but after July 1st in California, you have to, as a practicing real estate agent, have to hand over a form that tells people that this appraisal has not been done with bias towards, personal characteristics like age, gender, race, sexual orientation, religion. And it has to be with every transaction, every appraisal. So you have to put it out there that there are consequences to your actions. And, you no longer can say, hey, I didn't know, because nobody's going to stand for that. NAR has classes, CAR has classes. Your broker is expected to do training. It's in the continuing education as you renew your license. So you have to know. And it can't just be the blatant, answer is I didn't know. Ignorance is not the excuse anymore. So you have to be aware of it. And if you're not aware of it, be ready to, lose your license and go to another career.
Wow. Losing your license is a pretty serious penalty. I was speaking to Ed Delgado with Mortgage Policy Services, and he was saying the penalty for violating the Fair Housing Act is around $21,000, which is, what it was when it started years ago. So it's a drop in the bucket. And that, when do you ever hear of anyone losing their license or being fined for fair housing violations. And yet the evidence is it's widespread that fair housing violations are still occurring every day. And you can just look at, as Dolores has laid out, the composition of neighborhoods to see that redlining and steering is still happening today.
Yeah. And I think that what needs to be done is, that first violation is 21. Yeah. The second violation, it goes to about 50 to 60,000. It's either that or you lose your license if it's completely blatant. So I think what potentially needs to be done is an actual advertising of violators, having a website like CAR has a link that you can look at those who've been found guilty of ethics violations. I think that we probably will move towards having that for fair housing, because fair housing is a much, much higher offense and a higher fine than an ethics violation. Ethics violations usually are like 500 to like 2,500 at the most at the state level. You really have to be blatant to lose your license or have it restricted. Like, you basically have to make the decision that you don't want to have your face on the website and just not go to, the classes to rectify that situation. So I think that, potentially having it public knowledge is a route to potentially go down.
Leon, I love that idea. What do you think about that, Dolores?
I think that's an excellent idea. And one other thing we need to help aid fair housing in California is in Long Island, they were able to test. They had testers that checked out that Long Island realtor to find out that she was violating Fair Housing Act. But here in California, in order to test, we have to have a bill that says it's okay to test privately without people knowing it. Because if you say, all right, you're on camera and I'm recording you, of course they're not going to say the truth that they really feel. But we have to, there's a bill, I think, in motion now trying to get the fair housing testers able to record without signing a waiver. Isn't it, Leon?
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's called the no consent bill, because in California, we have, you need consent for everything. Consent to record, consent to, put someone on video, to publish the video, right? Even at the local associations, to even speak at the local associations, you have to sign a form to consent that you are willing to be recorded and be on the website. So, it's a hard thing to pass because it only takes 2 letters to not even allow for testing. So it's just, it's consent. We fought for it. Now, can we fight for it to ensure that we don't need it to make things better? It's a conundrum.
Leon, has the website for ethics violators been effective in deterring ethic violations?
Yes and no. I think so, because it really puts a light on what people are doing. And I would say no, because not everyone knows about it. So, for me, I learned about it in orientation when I joined my local association. So for those who, don't really pay attention to new member orientation, not many people, talk about it anywhere else. I don't even think some brokers know about it. So I think that it's effective when you end up on there and people know, because it's kind of like a, like Santa Claus at Christmas time, the naughty list. But if you don't know about it, then how could you prevent it or end up not being on there by not knowing, your laws, or not even knowing that this exists? Because your photo is on there and it tells you exactly what you did. It tells you you're fine. It tells you everything. It's literally like, it's like, hey, this is what this person did. Try to avoid this and end up like this person.
Now, is this list sent out to every member of CAR once it's created? And obviously the persons who are violators should be aware they're on the list, right?
Right. So it's not like, hey, the new ethics violator list is out. It's more like, okay, here's the link. just go on and check and you can see exactly what's done. And it's a photo, it's their name, their license number, their brokerage, and a summary of exactly the situation and what articles did they violate and the consequence of that violation. If you don't want to end up on that website, you can just not show up and you lose your license. You just give it up. So if people knew about it, I think that people would be more cautious. Or you just may have those rebels who just don't care because it's all about the money at the end of the day. So,
well, Carr puts out a magazine. Why isn't it not in the magazine? And they have a high traffic website. Why is it not a banner somewhere on the home page? Ethics violators. And I'm
That's a
asking
good
these
idea.
questions because I think that you're onto something here. Getting our legislators to make the fair housing laws, more impactful, a bigger deterrent. It's not working. There's no movement that I know of to strengthen it or to make it more punitive to those who would violate it. And so I think that we need to look to our leaders within the trade associations to be the enforcers. And I think that having banners on the website, having full page ads in their magazines, also writing press releases on a monthly basis to all the national media and local media. I mean, I would be happy to put a full page ad. In fact, you know what? That's what we're going to do. So you're hearing it here first, folks. One of the privileges of being the president and CEO of the Power is Now Media. We're going to put the list of violators in all 4 of our magazines, full page ads. And hopefully that will be a deterrent to those who are either out there advertising, promoting, selling real estate, that you are being watched. You are being watched, and we are taking note when disciplinary action is being taken against you because of your ethics violations and or your fair housing violations, because we have to do something. I was thinking about this the other day, looking at for sale by owner websites, and I'm seeing that you not just have for sale by owner websites, but you have these hedge fund companies who are buying real estate and then selling it, and they're trying to eliminate the real estate agent. We all know this, right? That's the new movement. But I'm concerned that with the advent of technology, ask Google, YouTube, Facebook, everybody, and the whole DIY movement, everybody thinks that they could do it better than a realtor, right? And so do you believe that for sale by owners are at a greater risk of violating fair housing laws innocently or even intentionally because they don't have, number one, a license, they haven't received any kind of training whatsoever, and they have no idea on the law as relates to the practice of real estate?
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, the FSBOs, as we call them, for sale by owners, they can discriminate against who they take an offer from. Absolutely, because they see the person and they don't want to sell to somebody. And that way, no one knows about it. Plus the fact that if they're doing a for sale by owner, they don't have all the tools. They don't have the disclosures. Even though they're selling it without an agent, there's still California disclosures that you have to give to any home buyer that's buying a home that tells them about the what's that tax that supplemental tax. That's something we have in bold writing because so many people would buy their house and didn't put any money aside. So when that first year they get that supplemental tax bill, they think, oh, well, that's in with my mortgage, and they throw it in the trash. And then next thing you know, they're in delinquency with the tax assessor. So there are important things, key things. It's just like the natural hazard disclosure report we give people. They don't know anything about it, nor do they care. But if they find out after they bought the house, there was an oil well nearby and there's contaminated soil, they can take them to the cleaners if they can find them. See, that's the other problem. These owners leave California and go somewhere, nobody knows how to find them.
Yeah.
So that's a major problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's without a doubt, it's a huge problem. I mean, it's literally says it in the title, for sale by owner. Like, you go through the ringer when you would buy something, you go to, if you were gonna buy like a pair of shoes or a pool table on offer up from somebody, wouldn't you want to go above and beyond for a house? Would you, our whole goal is to avoid being sued, right? California is probably the state that sues the most people for everything, breathing the same air or anything of that nature, right? So do you really want to put yourself at risk by going to someone who's going to just put a sign outside the door and said, I'm selling this home myself? Where'd you get your value for your house? What kind of condition is it? Do you have termite damage? Every house has termite damage, right? What are your property taxes like? Am I going to, for every sale, the property tax percentage does not transfer over. You get assessed on the value that you purchase a property on. The only people who can really know that are realtors.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter, they're going to try and filter us out. Every great profession has a disruptor. The question is, how long does the disruptor disrupt before the disruptor gets disrupted?
Yeah,
Right? It's like a tongue twister.
It
you're
is.
right.
It's
That's a
literally,
good one.
the disruptor comes in because it's only meant to be for a certain period of time.
Mhm.
And then someone comes to disrupt the disruptor. And it's up to the disruptor to not be disrupted and let the industry go back to itself. So it's honestly, I don't know why for sale by owners exist. I see, the purpose because they want to save money, which puts more
Greed.
in their, it puts more in their pockets. It's greed,
Mhm.
but it's
Yeah.
too much volatility, it's too much vulnerability for anybody to be happy with.
Now, Dolores, they might say, no, it's greed on behalf of realtors. You guys are charging 5, 6, 7%. That's just too much money.
We're worth every penny,
And then
penny,
some.
and then some. What we do is incredible. Including walking the dog, chasing the cat. We do everything. I had a property listed once and the dog got out and I'm like, oh, me and the repair people running down the street trying to catch the dog. So we do a lot. We do a lot.
We do.
It's
What about,
incredible.
what do you think about this? So I believe that because of what I've just stated about the risk and what you have kind of elaborated on, the risk associated with trying to sell your property your own, I believe that the state should get involved. In fact, I used to believe the state should get involved in setting commissions because you have agents out there who will sell a house for $50, or $1,000 flat fee. And it's really destroying the professionalism in our industry, these low discount brokers who don't do really anything, obviously, because they're not really getting paid to do anything. But that's another issue. I'm thinking that there should be a permit required if a person wants to sell their home on their own. And that permit would only be issued after they've taken a series of courses on real estate practice, that they have taken a series of courses on fair housing, so that they cannot claim ignorance if they do discourage or discriminate in selling their property. And of course, pay fees, significant fees, because the state would administrate that. And then they would also come under the purview of the state, even though they're not, a licensed real estate agent. They're given a permit for a period of, say, 6 months to sell their home. What do you think about something like that?
I think that's an excellent idea. Absolutely. That way they would have some kind of skin in the game that they could be gone after if they didn't do the right thing. The problem is they think that this is the open season, they can do whatever they want to because it's their house. It is their house. But when you sell it to a consumer, the consumer has rights. It's just like the airline travelers' bill of rights. People should have rights. If you're buying a house, you shouldn't just be out there with some crazy person selling the house by themselves and tell you, oh, I put that roof on yesterday. And then after you buy the house, it starts leaking because you didn't go up there on a ladder, like who would, and check yourself. You know, there's just really sad things that happen when somebody buys a house for sale by owner and you don't know what's really happening.
Right. And you're not getting the wise counsel
No
of a
counsel.
real estate professional to guide you. You don't have an advocate to protect you from sellers who may want to, play games or not fully disclose everything that's going on. I love the idea of the home buyer bill of rights. And, this is something that I'm in communication now with my representatives. This is an idea that I'm floating with them to hopefully become a bill here in the state of California. Maybe other states will follow because I believe as we develop in terms of technology, I mean, everybody's online. All this business being done online, people are smarter, at least they think they are smarter because they can ask Google. And so people are trying to take on more and more of doing things themselves to so-called save money. At the same time, though, there is a growing movement of people who, because they're kind of overwhelmed with all the information because of the ability to research themselves online, that they realize they don't have the depth of understanding and or practice and experience to take this on. And so they value even more today than perhaps ever a seasoned professional, educated, certified experience to guide them to the process. So it's kind of a two-edged sword that's happening on, one end, right, the DIY, the other end, say, geez, I'm not touching this at all. I'm going to go find me a qualified agent.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize that, realtors bring value. And it's not just the value of avoiding legal trouble. It brings property value. So when you hire a realtor, you're only paying a portion of the increased property value because we did research on the property. So it's extra money that you're going to be making no matter what. So it's like, would you rather pay a realtor, pay nothing on this amount, or pay realtor a little bit out of the extra money that you're making?
Right.
So, I think it's not really put that way enough because that's exactly what we do. We bring value, and we know the value of your property because that's our job. Like if we don't know the value of your property, why are we even at your house?
That's right. That's right. And then the other thing is, if you were for sale by owner and you're moving out of state, you didn't have a real estate advisor telling you that escrow is going to hold a third of your money for property tax in the state of California. Withholding. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Had a realtor, we would have told you, you better go let Aunt Sarah down the street use her address or something. I never said that, but that's what you get. You get what you get. You can lose a lot of money, and then they're, oh, I thought I was getting $100,000 and I only got 60. Where's my other 30? Well, you can collect it after you file your taxes.
Wow. Yeah. Knowledge is power, and the power is now.
It right? Is.
And many people are just being victimized because they simply are not aware. First, we have the law itself. People are not aware. And we have those who are aware but don't care. And as it relates to people not caring, what do we do outside of, taking licenses? Do we really want to do that? No. Do we really want to make people pay fines? No. We just want them to do the right thing. So how do we make the Fair Housing Act a real deterrent where a person is literally afraid to violate the law? And is it, as it stands right now, Dolores and Leon, a deterrent, or is it not?
I don't think it's a deterrent, but I think peer shaming would help a lot too. Yeah, peer shaming, because they want to be, oh, I did this and I sold that and I've got 17 in escrow. Yeah, right. Picture that. And you've got one person that you discriminated against, then what's wrong with you? It's peer shaming. We need to bring peer shaming. Like you said, Eric, if you put that ethics violation in the Power Is Now magazine, then peers would see it and they'd say, oh, you did that? Oh my God. And I used to think you were so wonderful. Now I find that you're really an undercover bigot. So, okay, let's see. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
I
we're going to
can.
do it.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think, it's a real hit to the ego. They naturally say that we're, pretty big, like a lot of realtors have big personalities. There's nothing that makes someone come down to earth than a public display of their wrongdoing.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, consider it done. May issue, all 4 magazines.
All right.
We will be advertising the violators. And, if there is some type of litigation going on in which a person has been charged as guilty of a fair housing violation, then we're going to publicize that as well. That will take more research because there's no kind of governing body, right? There's no, that this is another problem with the enforcement of it. Now, the other thing too that I'm going to get back to for sale by owners, because here, ultimately, anyone selling real estate had to get a license, right? And so they bring to that profession their unconscious bias, right? And we see this happening with the appraisal controversy right now. Appraisers having unconscious bias, appraising property for less than what they are truly worth because of the ethnicity or color of the person who owns the property. And we see for sale by owners, because of the lack of training, licensing, what have you, it would just be natural for them to bring their unconscious bias and selling their own property, which I think we do need a home buyer's bill of rights and some type of permanent licensing. What do we do to, can we remove unconscious bias? How do you change the hearts and minds of real estate professionals? I believe one way to do it is for us to get together and to get to know one another, because there's a whole lot of training happening. NAR led the way with Newsday's article and all the Fairhaven and what have you. And then, CAR with the diversity officer and other states are doing things. There's a whole lot of training, but there's not a whole lot of interaction between the minorities within these associations. The very fact that we have NAREP, we have NAREP, we have ARIA, and they all have their respective conferences, they all have their respective agendas, they all have their respective chapters, and you go to any one of these associations, whether they're conferences and our meetings, and majority of people there look just like the organization that exists. I believe part of the solution would be greater efforts towards getting to know one another and work together, some type of real strategic plan where ARIA and NAREP and NAREP literally come up with a real plan where agents do business with one another, get to know one another, engage with one another, something like that. What do you think about that, Leon?
I think it's a great idea. I think, one of the reasons that one of the ways or reasons unconscious bias can go away is experience and understanding. They say that's knowledge is, the key to all doors, right? If you have knowledge and understanding of what each of these, aspects of real estate happens for each and every minority group, then you can kind of learn from it. We're all here to learn from each other and help the industry and help the community because we're, forward people facing. It's just that, we naturally, human nature, flock to people that we have a lot in common with. It's, it's been said in psychology and everybody says it no matter what, you go to people that people that look like you, talk like you, from the same area, like the same things. It's a given. it's uncomfortable for us to be around people that we may not perceive to know or have a lot in common with. So putting that experience together, having, a conference together, encouraging people from that other community to come in, giving them time to speak, and letting them know about what an honor it is to be here. It's all about just being open and having that experience, because if you don't have the experience, you're never going to know.
Yeah, it's never going to change. And we have to be intentional about it, right? We have to be strategic about it, because we're dealing with hearts and minds and emotions and deep-rooted cultural experiences that come from our parents and our grandparents. That's taught, that's part of our DNA. How do you change that?
Yeah.
How do you change it? Dolores, what are your thoughts?
Well, actually, because I'm so old, I was here when NAREB and ARIA formed, and I know the leaders, Alan Okamoto and Alan Chang, also Jerry from NAREB, and they all invited everybody, and NAR makes sure that whenever they have their conferences, they're at the table too, and NAREB also. So they're all going to each other's conferences, but that's the leaders. That's the leaders. So it has to get out to the membership, because I remember when I was in Women's Council, if we had to go to a conference and you had to have a roommate, and you were not allowed to pick your friend as your roommate. So they gave you just a roommate. So when you got there, you were rooming with somebody that didn't look like you, and vice versa, and you get to know other people. I remember rooming with a lady, and she was from rural Minnesota. So that's how you get to know people. And with us being in the real estate business, we need to do referrals all over the state and the country. So you need to get to know people of all kinds of people. You really need to know that. You need to know people in rural areas, because you never know when you're going to get a listing referral that's in some rural area of Mississippi or something. So you don't know. You need to know everybody. And because of my background, I worked for an airline, and they had that same philosophy. When they sent you on a business trip, you were going to have a roommate, and you didn't get to pick. So you had to get to know people. So I already was used to that. So, people that aren't used to that, that's a problem. If they grew up in an all-Black community, went to all-Black school, and then all of a sudden they're the only Black person in the room, then they might, if they don't have like Leon said, a big personality, they might get a little frightened or insecure. I was insecure when I was maybe 6 years old, and that's over. That party is over. So I can't tell you how many places I've been where I'm the only one in the room that looks like me. So I don't care. I'm just getting my martini and roaming around the room. I could care less. So everybody will know me before they leave. And sometimes that's a good thing. Then you get more recognition, and then you get referrals, which turns into money. So I think people need to get out of that comfort zone and find out, if you get to know somebody and know their story, listen to their story, sit down with them. It's amazing when you sit down with somebody, what you find out that you really have in common. And that's a good thing. So we need to promote, and I could actually see that happening, Eric, a big conference with everybody. NAREB, NAREB, ARIA, and us, all of us together. I could see that happening. As soon as COVID is out of the way, I'm sure they would all be happy. I know those leaders, to have one big fat day or two together.
Yeah, it should be a week, because it's going to take time when you have, NAREP is the largest minority trade association in the country, right? 44,000, I believe, strong. So it needs to be a week, and it needs to go beyond leadership, because they do go out of their way to reach out to one another at the leadership level, come to our conferences, and they do that. But it has to happen with a general population of agents in their respective organizations. And that's really where the effort to work together, the efforts to cooperate with one another, to not discriminate, that's where it's going to start. And until we do that, I don't see any other way to change the hearts and minds of real estate professionals who are discriminating unconsciously, who are to stop. And then when you look at the California, I mean, we have these pockets, all Latino, all Asian, all Black. I mean, that's evidence in and of itself that unconscious bias by real estate agents still exists, and by for those who sell their properties on their own. We need a strategy with real intention by the major trade associations, the minority trade associations, for integration. It reminds me of, school busing, and integration. It became a matter of law to integrate, and it needs to be a matter of policy, and it needs to be real intent, real strategy around integration. And I think that's how we in the private sector at the trade level take the lead in helping to uphold the goals and the ideals of fair housing.
And Eric, I've just remembered something else. In gentrification, one of my new neighbors was Asian, and then they had to move after a year to Orange County, to Irvine. And he called us back and he says, do you know, I went to those white communities and they were so unreceptive and unresponsive. He said, I never saw such evil, mean people in my life. So we had to move into the Asian community of Irvine. So we would feel comfortable because we have young kids. We didn't want them to be subjected to that. So
Right.
it's undercover too.
Yes, yes.
It's in the shadows. It needs to come out. They need to come out of the closet with that discrimination. And we need to call it.
We need to call it. Absolutely right. The new undercover discrimination is encoding, right? So that's another discussion. We are way past time. I really appreciate you guys taking time with me today. And I want to get your final thoughts on discrimination and the Fair Housing Act. Let's start with you, Dolores. And before you do, again, I want people to know who you are and how to reach out to you. If they're looking for a seasoned professional real estate broker in LA, you need to call Dolores Golden.
That's right. Call Dolores Golden at 213-718-2305. And I look at my email all day long. So if you go on my Facebook or my website, you can find me. I am available. And that's how I look for referral agents too. So make sure you're visible. And I think that we need to start calling out the secret undercover discrimination when we see it and bring that peer shaming to these people. But don't let them go unseen. We need to call them. When we get these complaints from our consumers, some of them are elderly and they not computer savvy and they can't go online and file a complaint with HUD, but we need to help them.
Yeah.
Leon.
Yeah. My name is Leon Townsend. My phone number is 626-372-9374. For me, I just think that, it's something that's still here. And if it wasn't here, then we wouldn't have to do all these things. There wouldn't need to be documents and amendments and updates to acts if discrimination wasn't present. If it doesn't sound right to you, it's discrimination. So don't be afraid to speak up, ask for help, and we'll make sure that something happens in the right way for you. That's how I feel, and I think that's how it just has to be.
Thank you, Leon and Dolores, for spending time with me today to talk about this very important topic of fair housing. Thank you again, Dolores Golden and Leon Townsend. I really appreciate their time today in talking about the Fair Housing Act. And folks, if you're looking for a great real estate agent in Los Angeles, you have them both to reach out to support your home buying needs. And for those of you who are in the industry, aren't you encouraged? There are people like Leon and Dolores who are true advocates of homeownership and of fair housing. We need more agents to be advocates of fair housing and to not to discriminate, but to encourage fair housing with their sellers, if they're representing sellers, and to just be an example by how they treat their customers. Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the show. There's more to come. The 2022 Fair Housing Series for the 1968 Fair Housing Act is on and happening right now. Please remember to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Please download our mobile app. It's Power Is Now TV. You can watch all of our programming from your phone. Go to our website, thepowersnow.com. Check out our magazines and also check out our other shows. Homebuyer town halls are happening all over the country, folks. We will be in all 50 states soon with our Homebuyer Town Hall show. If you're a seasoned real estate professional and you would like to have your own show, reach out to the Power Is Now Media. Thank you for watching. Remember, we are at our best and we maximize our success when we act now. The power is now.